Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The sabad is Berari Mahalla Chotha, composition of the fourth Nanak, Gur Ramdas. The recitation of the sabad. जप मन हर हर नाम नित ध्याए, जो इच्छै सोई फल पावै, फिर दुख न लागै आए रहाओ। सो जप सो तप साब्रत पूजा, जित हर स्यों प्रीत लगाए। बिन हर प्रीत होर प्रीत सब झूठी, इक खिन मह बिसर सब जाय। तू बेअंत सर्ब कल पूरा, किछ कीमत कही न जाए। नानक शरण तुम्हारी हर जियो, पावै तिवै छड़ाए। So the sabad is in Berari, Mahalla Chautha. And the Rahau begins with Jap Man Har Har Naam Nit Dhyaye. So, traditional translations would read this as, O mind, chant Har or Hari, the name of Hari, and meditate on it continually. And then the next line, Jo ichha soi phal paaveh, phir dukh na lage aaye, would be a promise that whatever you wish, that fruit you shall receive, and sorrow shall not come to touch you again. Well, we have to really relook these lines and our traditional interpretations, because it seems to me that they are missing the movement completely. Jap, as we have said very often on this forum, is not chanting. And Dhyaye is not meditation, nor are these synonyms, Jap and Dhyaye. They are two very distinct stages of a psychological sequence where Jap leads to Dhyan. So you see, consider your mind as it is. Very likely it is fragmented. Very likely it is being pulled in a dozen different directions by a whole variety of things. It could be anything from something as simple as a text notification or some past anxiety that you're reliving. The static is constantly humming in the background of your mind. And so you cannot simply tell a chaotic mind to be still. So jap is conscious realignment. Think of it as conscious realignment. It is active, it is intentional, and it is intervention. So it is that practice where you are consciously realigning through deliberate vocalization of Naam, and by that I mean Gurbani. You have to vocalize, begin by vocalizing. It is like striking a tuning fork or steering a drifting boat back on course. This is manually resetting your internal frequency. It requires manual intervention, and that is called jap. Now, we all know that its etymology means to mutter or to utter. So it relates to vocalization. So understand that about jap. There is some degree of intervention. Things don't just happen by themselves. And the next is dhyaye. Guruji is saying, Jap man har har naam nit dhyaye. So, nit is every day, all the time, continuous. In other words, reorient yourself, dhyaye, so that it leads to dhyaye. So jap is not the final destination. It leads to a state of dhyana, meaning your attention is now moving to that inner sacred space. It's not, dhyan is not something you do. It is a state you fall into. It is deep, sustained absorption. So naam is not just a syllable that you repeat. The gurus have pointed naam as being something more like a conscious presence of reality within you. And what is being promised? Jo ichha soi phal paave, phir dukh na lage aaye. Now again, on the surface, this is saying you'll get whatever you want. But again, let's look at this through the lens of Gurmat. What happens to your desires when your mind moves from fragmentation to absorption? That's what's happening. So you see, when you're living out of your small, insecure ego, how main, that's when you're anxious. That's when you're distracted. Your desires are defensive. What do you desire? What do I mean by defensive? You want status, you want validation, you want control, you want possession in order to protect your fragile sense of self. But we know that leads us onto the treadmill of hedonism. The moment you get what you want, the satisfaction evaporates, you're trapped in a cycle of a feeling of chronic lack. But when you slip into dhyaye, your identity shifts. You no longer view yourself as an isolated fragment fighting the world. You experience yourself as an expression of the whole. Your desires mutate. You stop desiring things to fill your emptiness because you no longer feel empty. Your primary desire, you're filled with alignment, with presence, with love, because that divine presence is already there. So what does dukh in this context mean? It'll never touch you again. Guruji is not talking about that ordinary pain that we feel. It means something more specific. As I said, it's that background hum of anxiety. It's the dread of impermanence. So all Indic traditions, whether Sikh, Vedantic, Buddhist, they share a common diagnosis of this particular kind of suffering that is called dukh. It is not suffering produced by an event, let's say a fall or betrayal, but it is suffering produced by our relationship to what is happening. It is the ache of clinging to what is passing, the pain of seeking permanence in what cannot last. That really is dukh. There are some markers that you could keep in mind. One is the feeling of not enough. 2, compulsive comparison, status anxiety. 3, restlessness. You can't sit alone by yourself in a quiet room. 4, that there is dread of things going well. This is paradoxical. It is always sort of that feeling, that waiting for the other shoe to drop. So there are these markers, and then there is boredom. These are all markers of what the Guru is now calling dukh. So it doesn't mean that these events will not happen. It means that the mind is no longer invested in what is moving. When attention is resting on the presence within, the Har, the events of life can come and go, and you are not undone by them. You just see them come and go because you are rooted in your real source. The first verse that follows the Rahau, So jap, so tap, sa brat puja, jit har syo preet lagaye. बिन हर प्रीत होर प्रीत सब झूठी एक खिन मह बिसर सब जाय. It's reminding us, Guru Ram Das is targeting religious anxiety. We engage in performing outer rituals, chanting, forced penance, mechanical worship, ritual worship, japa, brata, puja. Guru Ram Das he's dismissing them, saying none of this matters unless it sparks actual internal love, preet, internal love, harsyo preet. Why does it matter? Because we've just spoken about the insecurity of being anchored in purely transient, temporary things. Fundamentally, jhuthi. Jhuthi, it's an illusion of safety. And why is it an illusion? Because ek khin mein bisar sab jaye. It can vanish in an instant. So Guruji is collapsing the entire architecture of external religious effort, the ritual chant, the austerity, the fasting, the formal worship, into a single criterion. And the criterion is love. If the practice produces love for the divine, it is practice. If it doesn't, it isn't, no matter how elaborate it is. And then, Tu beant sarab kal pura, kich कीमत कही न जाय. नानक शरण तुम्हारी हर जियो, पावे तिवे छड़ाय. You, the infinite, your workings are beyond calculation. I cannot control or manipulate reality to suit my ego. कीमत कही न जाए. Therefore, what choice do I have? Nanak saran tumhari har jiyo, pave tive chadaye. I have to abandon my ego and seek your sanctuary. Absolute surrender. This is what the Stoics call amor fati, which is a radical acceptance and love of one's reality. Hukam rajai chalana, exactly as it unfolds. When you stop fighting reality as it unfolds and instead immerse yourself in it through dhyan, this existential dread vanishes. So, japa mana is not a command to perform a ritual. It is to realign the mind. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.